Yo, what's up guys, it's your boy Sami here. Today we are gonna see, what if Naruto had the Susanoo, part 2. Hope you'll enjoy this video. So before we start, please subscribe to our channel, and like this video. So let's get into the video. The moonlight seeped through the window, as it casts a faint light into the room. A nicely furnished room basked slightly in the light, and showed to anyone that the room belonged to a young girl. There was a small wooden desk with several open books about computer technology, with a few items that she had marked with red. Along the walls were several pictures and posters of her favorite band, photos of her friends and family at which a lot could be seen with her and a tall, athletic young man. Further, in the room, you could see a wardrobe that was slightly open with several pieces of lingerie peeking out of the drawers that would make a lot of men blush. Against the far wall are a one-person bed where a silhouette could be seen and long, auburn flowing hair. Suddenly the wind picked up in the room and made the curtains dance as a shadow crept along the floor towards the person's bed. If you focus a bit more, you could make out of the shadow a clawed hand that now crawled up her bed and tore off the blanket. The girl's eyes snapped open and fell at the deformed figure of her worst nightmare. "I told you, Batgirl. You will never leave my world." The rough, deranged voice of Scarecrow echoed through her room. Blue-green eyes shrunk, her body trembled in fear before she parted her lips and screamed. Her voice traveled through the whole building as she crawled away from Scarecrow and pressed herself against her room's wall, and a second later her room door slammed open, and a familiar figure barreled into her room with a handgun in his hand and surveyed her room before they focused on her. Immediately the person glided towards her and wrapped his arms around her quivering body and pressed her against his toned chest while caressing her cheek. "Barbara, everything is alright. It was only a nightmare, SSH." The voice that now filled the air was warm, caring, and she felt protected when she was pressed deeper into his well-toned chest. This person rocked her back and forth, calming her down with a gentle voice, as he whispered into her ear, at which she slowly calmed down and enjoyed the attention and caring nature of her best friend. She tilted her head slightly, so she could see into the beautiful, sparkling sapphire eyes that belonged to her hidden crush of 4 years since she had met him. Was it that monster again? Barbara nodded in acknowledgement at the question, as she snuggled deeper into his embrace. She felt his arms tightening around her some more before he continued. "Commissioner Gordon is out at work again and asks me to watch over you, Barb. I am sorry that he woke you up in the middle of the night, Naruto." Her best friend only shook his shoulder while keeping rocking her, as slowly the thought about Scarecrow was pushed to the back of her mind. She lifted an arm up and caressed his sharp chin. "But I am glad you are here, with me." Naruto chuckled as he leaned in some more as she caressed his face. "We are friends, Barbara, and nothing is too much for our friendship. You know that, right?" "I know, Naruto. Come, you must go back to sleep, as tomorrow we must again listen to those droids that dare to call themselves teachers." The cheeky smile of her blonde Adonis made her smile too, and he prepared to leave the room, only for her to stop him and pull him into her bed. "What is it?" "Please, Naruto, only for tonight." Sapphire eyes fell on that of his first friend that he made in this world, and he almost wished he didn't. The reason was that her eyes adopted that look that every normal male would avoid at all costs. A sigh escaped his lips as he pulled the cover over them and wrapped his arms around her waist and pulled her closer to him. "Thank you, Naruto-kun, sleep tight." "You too, Barbara-chan." He lifted his head slightly up and pressed his lips softly against her forehead before they drifted towards Morpheus's realm. Naruto only hoped that Commissioner Gordon would not put him in jail again, only to be bailed out by Barbara for how many times he couldn't count, as it happened every time to him. Outside Barbara's room, and across from Gordon's residence, stands a dark figure on the roof with narrowed eyes watching the scene. This person is none other than the Dark Knight of Gotham, Batman, who had hoped to gather some intel of what had happened to his protege, and give her an antidote, but with her having someone watching over her, it is impossible to sneak in. Turning around with his cloak billowing around him, Batman left his observation spot, and moved through the shadows in search of the person that could give him intel of what had happened when he was away. And there was only one person that came up in his mind, and one destination where he would find him. He pulled out his grapple hook and shot it towards a high building, and catapulted himself high into the air as he sailed through the night sky with his cloak spread out. From his position in the sky, he could see the spotlight with the bat symbol on, and skydive down towards the person that awaited him, that goes by the name of Commissioner James Gordon. Spotting the mentioned man, he landed with a quiet thud behind him that caused the commissioner to jump in the air. "Commissioner, what's the call?" Batman spoke in his usual way of greeting the commissioner. The head of Gotham City Police Corps turned around and extended his hand with a file document towards the Dark Knight that accepted the file and opened it. Opening the file, his eye fell on a sketch that made him feel troubled. He scanned the sketch, from the claw bracers to the Kevlar armor, and this strange ripple pattern mask. He closed his eyes for a moment before he focused on Gordon and stated his question. "Who is he?" "We don't know who he is, and I know that you will find out who he is, Batman. After all, you're the greatest detective the world has ever known." Commissioner Gordon turned around and left the roof, for once leaving Batman behind. Not a second after Gordon out of sight, several sailed through the air towards the shadow. Across from his spot. There was a slight twitch of the lips when he caught the dull sound of his tools crashing against the wall. I missed him. He is quite skilled at avoiding my tools. Batman, a surprise to meet you on this starless evening. Batman turned his eyes towards the person that slowly stalked out of the shadows, much like himself. Out of the shadows came a plated, armored foot that had claws on the outside, then came to the rest of the person out of the shadows, and his eyes whitened slightly, as the armor looked like a replica of his, only much more dangerous. But he didn't stop scanning for his possible opponent or enemy, as his eyes traveled up to his chest where he didn't find the bat symbol, but 9 commas that softly glowed red. Finally, his eyes fell on the ripple pattern mask of this mysterious person with no name. And I have come here to see you. Who are you? Demanded the Dark Knight, as he sailed towards this person that awaited him calmly, much to his annoyance. Landing with a dull thud, he whirled around his axis, and delivered a roundhouse kick that his opponent avoided by ducking under the swipe, and retaliated with an uppercut that sent Batman into the air where he straightened himself, somersaulted, and landed in a crouch on the roof before he threw out a set of that his opponent easily deflected with a swipe of his arms. Why did you save Batgirl? Susanoo charged in, and stepped into Batman's guard, and quicker than the Dark Knight could see, this man hit the nerve system in his limbs, and made them numb. His arms fell motionless, and limp beside his body. Seeing that he is out of fighting this state, Susanoo took his chance. Now that you can't fight me with your arms, maybe you will listen to me, Batman. Then start talking, and you can start with telling me who you are, demanded Batman in his usual gruff way. He narrowed his eyes while his cowl scanned Susanoo, and transmitted some data about this stranger to a dark cave somewhere. Is it natural for you to demand things, Batman? Susanoo mentally thought when he heard the infamous crime fighter demand some answers. Studying the bat-themed hero like he definitely studied him, Susanoo decided to answer at least some questions, only for the fun of it. You really think I will reveal my identity to you, don't you? But you might call me Susanoo, and for me rescuing Batgirl, she was lucky that day. Alfred, I need you to find everything that you can about someone that is called Susanoo. The Dark Knight said quietly, that bordered on whisper when he contacted his butler. And not for a moment he lost sight of the now-named Susanoo, that made his alarms ring at how skilled he was in battle. What is your business in my city? I wanted to meet you, Batman. First I met Batgirl, and let me ask you a question. Did you train her at all, like you trained Robin? He deflected the vigilante's question with a question of his own. Crimson eyes glared from out of the shadows of his mask towards the Dark Knight, who felt a malicious aura came off Susanoo. Did you know that Batgirl still has nightmares about that night when she was first caught by Scarecrow? She was almost broken under Scarecrow's toxin, and almost lost her mental state. All of that could have been avoided if you had taught her how to make antidotes or at least equip her with them. Justify that for me, Batman. I can't justify that, Susanoo. Batman snarled, angry at himself that he came short in protecting his protégé, and above all, the daughter of a good friend of his. One of the reasons why he hadn't started with antidote classes is because he was still training Robin, world protections including his own city, and a newly organized team with every hero's sidekick. Taking several deep breaths that would have been unnoticed if it was someone else, he calmed down. But I can take down the lab if you haven't already done that. I didn't. One of the reasons I revealed my presence to you is because I don't know the location. Besides, one of my thoughts is that there is more than one villain at work here, and I know that you have the most knowledge of Gotham's villains. And that means I need your help. Susanoo revealed his true reason as to why he revealed himself to the Dark Knight. The shinobi did search for several clues of Scarecrow's hidden bases, and while he did find many of them, it wasn't the one he was searching for. Not to say that the old bases were left untouched, as all the old data about his precious toxic formulas were left behind, and was now saved on a hard drive of his. And Scarecrow's old bases were now entirely destroyed beyond recognizing if he had anything to say about it. Susanoo suspects that there is more. If there is more than one villain at work here, then he would need more than one mind to find this base, and bring a halt to it. And that is his reason to make some contact with the Dark Knight of Gotham, to bring a halt to this disgusting plan. The Dark Knight stayed soundless, and repeated his possible allies' words in his head, trying to determine if he spoke truth or lies, and he isn't the most feared individual in Gotham if he didn't connect the links within seconds. All his guilt that he felt towards Batgirl, towards Commissioner Gordon, evaporated when he weighed Susanoo's words, and glared at him with his infamous bat glare. You speak half-truths. While you speak the truth, you keep some things behind. Something you want to tell me now? Commissioner Gordon has left out some intel about Scarecrow, the intel that he is not alone in this scheme. The Fearmaster worked together with thugs of Gotham's most infamous clown, Joker. Susanoo informed the Dark Knight, who gritted his teeth together at this unsuspected news. And I did break into several of Scarecrow's old bases to find the exact formulas about his recent toxicity, but so far I wasn't successful. Alfred, did you get the information about our new friend or what he claims about possible villains teaming up? Batman said quietly before he spoke in his usual gruff way, all his attention back on Susanoo, who seems to wait for some reaction to him. Deciding to give Alfred some more time to find any information about Susanoo or his claims, Batman decided to interrogate him some more. You said you broke in his old bases. Did you find any formulas of his toxins? A small smirk curled up behind his mask when one of the first lessons of his sensei resurfaced in his mind. A ninja must look underneath. I did find some data, and much of it was not for the faint-hearted. Batman now listened intently at what his one-time ally could tell him. He knew now for sure that there is something definitely wrong here in his city. I downloaded the data to one of my own hard drives, and destroyed the originals. What are your plans with them? Susanoo sighed quietly at Batman's interrogation tactics that weren't anything near that of Ibiki. I am recreating some of the wrong things to say when the Dark Knight rushed in, and wrapped his fingers around his neck. Batman's fingers tightened around his throat when he suddenly stopped, as a beeping sound came slightly from below his waist. In order to learn how to make successful antidotes that guaranteed work, and to learn how to break the toxin or any in that kind the quickest and successful way. Now, if you want to be so kind as to not cut off my air pipe, then I don't have to blow you up, Batman. Batman widened his eyes slightly before he released Susanoo from his grip. He hadn't noticed the small object before it beeped, and that unsettled him greatly. Also, he had judged him too quickly, and he might have possibly driven such an asset to his enemies. Instead of apologizing, Batman continued with his interrogation of Susanoo. And how do you have any knowledge about toxins, as well as poisons? Batman, I know what you try with this small gathering of information. Searching for any information about my name, skills, and knowledge. But you know what, I will help you a little, after all, fellow ninjas. Susanoo smirked when he informed the bat-themed hero that again stiffened, and took a fighting stance. His legs slightly spread, upper body shrunk together with his arms in front of his chest, was Batman's boxing stance. And again something that I said made you take a stand while at the same time your paranoia grew. I have fought enough nutcases, so I don't trust you. Now, let us go to one of Scarecrow's hideouts that you haven't yet blown up. Batman whirled around, cloak billowing behind him, as he moved towards the shadows for different reasons, one to see his skills, second to keep an eye on him. He brought his hand to the side of his head to speak to Alfred once more. Alfred, found anything yet? I did, sir. A Japanese deity named Susanoo is the god of storm, sea, and pranks. We can guess that the hidden identity behind the mask is of Japanese ancestry. We can also assume that he is highly trained in martial arts if the sketch and recordings of yours are any indication. Spoke Alfred towards his master, who jumped off the roof. The pair of ninjas moved through Gotham City with Batman in the lead towards a base of Scarecrow that Alfred pointed out to him. Once again he jumped off the building, and sailed like a bat down towards his destination, while Susanoo used Gamble's shroud to move from roof to roof while running, impressing Batman for his stamina. Landing with a dull thud, both Batman and Susanoo stepped into the shadows to take refuge for any possible enemies. And sir, I did scan his unusual weapon, which is a folded weapon in different forms that rank from blades to pistol, and kusarigama. Simply put, it is advanced technology. I can assume that he has a rich benefactor or he has deep pockets. Do you believe that he has any relations with the League of Shadows or Ra's al Ghul? Batman asked his faithful butler while he crouched in front of the door of Scarecrow's base, and lockpicked the entrance. A moment later the door made a positive beeping sound before a low hiss could be heard, and the door cracked open. Switching his attention from Alfred to Naruto, he said, "Let's go." Entering the base, the two ninjas scanned their surroundings carefully. Gliding like shadows through the corridor, they arrived at a large room where several screens were on. Seeing them, the duo made immediate work off by hacking into the database, and uncovered some shocking discoveries. Susanoo's fingers raced across the keys while keeping his attention on the screen where all information flashed onto the screen. You know something about Project Blockbuster? Yes, my team encountered Cadmus. Project Blockbuster. You found something? Indeed, I encountered Project Blockbuster, including your archenemy Bane's venom. And it seems that they continue on what they had started at Santa Prisca. Susanoo read in a cool tone while plugging his hard drive on the computer. The sound of his fingers hitting the keys echoed as he tried to hack into a highly secured file. Several seconds later he growled in anger and downloaded the entire file before deleting the entire computer. I got what I want, Toxin Strain 451B. The toxin that brings your deepest fear with some little surprises. Oh shit. What now? Retorted Batman when he heard his temporary ally curse. This file activates a trap that goes off within 1 minute. We need to go now. Susanoo unplugged the hard drive that had only 15% left before it was finished. But if he doesn't leave now, Batgirl will never get the cure. Turning on his axis, he ran out of the base with Batman on his heels, and they made it just in time to get out of the base before it exploded. A black fireball shot into the air when the base exploded, and the two ninjas could be found on a roof. They were watching the base burn before Batman turned to Susanoo with an extended hand. Hand over the data, Susanoo. No, I will not hand over the data. Not before I get a better understanding of it, and after that, then you can have it. Susanoo turned his back to the Dark Knight and moved away. A small smirk played on his lips when he caught the small hand gesture, and a slight beat that died immediately before he jumped off the building and vanished in the shadows below, leaving a tall, dark vigilante alone on the roof. He pulled out a tracking device before he too moved and vanished in the shadows. Alfred, I am going after him. The data that he now has in his possession is valuable, and if it falls into the wrong hands or gets destroyed, he knows what we will face next. Batman kept an eye on his device as he moved through Gotham City. The clock ticked, and time didn't stop as he arrived at the clock tower, and he could guess that somewhere in this building, Susanoo's base is hidden. I have arrived at the clock tower, I am going in. Stay safe, Master Wayne, Alfred said before cutting off the connection. I will, replied the Dark Knight, as his shadow glided along the floor as he moved through the hall. Several posters along the walls looked down at him menacingly when suddenly out of nowhere spears shot out of the wall, trying to drill holes into him. Batman launched himself into the air and used the wall to twirl, while he shot his grapple hook that made contact with the end of the hull and brought him to safety. Landing back on his feet, he glanced back at where he came from, and much to his surprise, no evidence of a trap could be found. He's dangerous if he can make such traps, but it also means I am on the right track. Welcome, Dark Knight, to my clock tower. Came a familiar voice from over the loudspeakers. The sound spread through the hall and towards Batman, who stiffened for any unexpected traps. You really didn't think I would not have noticed your little device, shame on you. But nice try. Why did you activate the traps if you knew that I came? Questioned the Dark Knight. The last time, and that wasn't that long ago, they were allies. But it seems this new person doesn't think the same about them being allies. We might have been allies a few moments before, but this is not an opportunity for me to let slip between my fingers. I mean, this is a perfect chance to test out my own security for my own safety. You can understand that, can't you? So, this is a test for you to see how secure your base is, Batman started, but he couldn't finish his line when the floor under him gave away, and he used the grapple hook to get away, and from there on he didn't have time to catch his breath. As he landed on an infrared-sensitive floor that activated shuriken launchers that shot out shurikens towards him. Swirling his cloak in front of him, Batman blocked most of the incoming trajectories as he sped through the hall before he was hit by high-voltage electricity that made his vision blurry before he fell towards his knees, and slowly his view darkened, and he fell unconscious. Lying unconscious on the ground, a shadow appeared above him, who knelt and then lifted the crime fighter and brought him to the main room of the base. Walking with Batman over his shoulder, Susanoo placed the Dark Knight on the floor before retreating back to his computer and continuing his study of the data. It seems that this toxin was made by Dr. Crane's father, and he only improved this stuff. Also the same toxin that used on Batgirl, and my own antidote worked, so why does she still have some negative effects from toxin strain 451B? Mused Susanoo while he now studied the two different data of the antidote for the toxin, one of the Scarecrow and another of himself, and he noticed that of his has a higher percentage of curing, exactly 100%. Now that begs the question, why didn't it work? Typing in some new data in his computer, and without turning he addressed the Dark Knight. What do you think, Batman? And between us, you failed to get past my security. No, I did not. I am here now, aren't I? Batman rubbed right back in Susanoo's face, who laughed at what he implied. Pushing himself off the floor, he moved to stand next to the ninja to look at the data. He was really impressed at the knowledge, and how quick he works with several pieces of data, and while he had heard his murmuring, he could see that he was right. You were right. The toxin's antidote is perfect, but you did not calculate the brain's function. While Batgirl is cured, there is still the possibility that the effect lingers around her. And what would we do for her? Making her stop crime is not an ideal idea for her, as in her dreams she felt alone, scared, and worthless. What she needs is a team that supports her, makes her feel worthwhile. Susanoo advised while keeping his attention on the screens. Then a second, smaller screen popped up on the screen with a young girl with a green mask and long blonde hair appeared. Yes, Artemis, what is it? Susanoo, I need your help. That freak that built that android is escaping, and at the moment I am tracking him. Batman was surprised to see Arrow's new sidekick on his possible allies screen. An idea formed in his mind at how he could help Batgirl while at the same time to keep an eye on Susanoo and hopefully gather more intel about him. And before you ask where Arrow is, he is having a hot date with Canary. Jealous? But I will be on my way, see you soon. Susanoo replied before cutting her off, knowing that she would retort. Turning his attention back to Batman, he handed him the stick with the data that the Dark Knight took. I hope you have a solution for Batgirl, and, as you might have seen, I am needed somewhere else. I have a solution, Batman said, and the two ninjas left the base, as they vanished in the shadows. Susanoo moved through the night in order to get as quick to Artemis, and help her to get that mad scientist back in Belle Reve, while Batman moved back to his Batcave to check the data himself. And get rid of the tracker that is certainly on him. Both ninjas arrived at their destination, and were done before daylight broke out, and they took off their masks to mingle themselves with the normal people. Ahem. Naruto, why does it not surprise me to see you in my little girl's bed? Naruto shot straight up when he heard the stern tone of his best friend's uncle, and whipped his head towards the doorframe, where he could see Commissioner James Gordon glaring sternly at him. The blonde skin tone paled drastically, especially when a slim, soft hand crawled up his face and pulled him back in bed. "You two will miss breakfast and be late for school if you," Gordon glared at Naruto. "Don't come out of bed right now." "Yes, sir." The blonde jumped out of bed and noticed that Gordon's sighs in relief when he noticed he at least wears boxers. Naruto picked up his clothes before moving towards the showers, while Gordon kept glaring at him before he moved towards Barbara to shake her awake. Under the shower, Naruto soaped his body, as he thought about the soft fleshy orbs pressed into his chest when Barbara laid half on him. Slowly he hummed a melody from a Japanese band that was the closest to his ancestry, and his humming was suddenly joined by a second one. Peeking out from the shower, he caught sight of Barbara brushing her teeth, and she winked at him when she caught sight of his head. "Barb, your uncle will murder me when he catches us like this." Barbara lowered her head and rinsed her mouth, and then smiled in the mirror to show her white teeth. She laughed melodically at the terrified face of her best friend, and moved to pick up a towel, and brought that to him, as he killed the shower, and quickly took the towel, and wrapped it around his waist, and then stepped out. The beautiful auburn-haired girl smiled at him, as she planted a small kiss on his cheek. "He likes you, Naruto. Don't let his commissioner act scare you off." "Hey. You aren't the one that found himself a few times in a special CLL with the name board, Naruto Namikaze. His only crime is sleeping in your bed with one of the most beautiful girls of Gotham." Barbara heard Naruto exclaim that made her laugh, and blush at the same time before she shoved him out of the bathroom while he still was naked, as the day he was born with only a towel around his waist. And my cloth. A second later the door was thrown open, and his clothes flew through the air, and landed on his face. "Naruto, will you come to the kitchen? I need to ask you something." James Gordon's voice came from down the hall, and Naruto sped up in drying himself, and pulled on his uniform, since when did he have a uniform here at Barbara's place? Once clothed, Naruto moved towards the kitchen to see James Gordon sitting at the table with 3 mugs of coffee, and gestured to him to sit down. "I can assume that nothing happened between you and my little girl." "Nothing happened between Barbara and me when you were on duty, sir. I promise, Scout Honor." Naruto assured the head of Gotham City Police Corps, who stared at him with hard eyes that softened when Naruto gave his words. Seeing that Gordon did wait for some more news on what might have happened the evening he was away, Naruto told him about Barbara's nightmare, and how he ended up in her bed. "When she fell asleep, I got a feeling that someone was watching us." Gordon's eyes sharpened for a moment before it softened at Naruto's mention of someone watching his little girl. He was, of course, worried about his little girl, and that someone is watching her make him uncomfortable, but he can guess who did watch the 2 young teens, and smiled a little before he brought his hand through Naruto's blonde hair, making it messier. "Good job, Naruto. I won't throw you in a CLL this time because you helped Barbara. But don't think that will happen again, understood?" "Understood, sir." Squeaked Naruto just in time when Barbara joined them, and took a seat next to Naruto. She extended her hand to steal a piece of toast from Naruto, who looked at her, as if she killed his dog. "Hey. That's mine." "Not anymore, and I must say it tastes delicious," smirked Barbara, and took a bite from Naruto's toast. The blonde grumbled, and picked a new one before plastering some jam on it before taking a bite, while Gordon laughed at the two's behavior. The auburn-haired beauty smiled when she picked Naruto's coffee, and winked flirtingly at him. "Oh Naruto, don't look at me like that, you know that you love me. How are your projects in CLL?" "Exceptionally well. Many of my projects can help the GCPD in fighting against villains. But I still think I should call my lab, chemistry examination lab location, something else other than that," complained Naruto when he rescued his toast from Barbara's loose fingers, much to Gordon's amusement. The blonde took a quick bite, and then picked up Barbara's cup, and took a sip. "And I would love you, Barb, if you stopped stealing my food and coffee." "Just confess, you love me a lot, Naruto-kun." Barbara drawled out with a giggle, as she picked up her plate, and that of her uncle, and brought it to the sink with Naruto following her suit. She turned around, and planted a small kiss on her uncle's cheek before retreating back to Naruto, and wrapped her arms around his right, and dragged him out of the kitchen. "Uncle, I'm going to spend the night at Naruto's place. I'll see you later." "Have a nice day at school, Barb, and Naruto, don't you dare to do anything funny to my little girl," Gordon shouted before the pair exited his apartment, and he prepared himself to go to GCPD. Suddenly a light bulb went off in his head, and he ran to his window, and threw it open to see his target. Seeing the pair, he grinned wickedly, and brought doom to Naruto's wallet. "Barbara, dear, I heard that Naruto promised me to take you out shopping." "Gordon," thundered Naruto's voice through the air, as the man himself snickered evilly. Naruto and Barbara moved towards Gotham Academy, where they would spend the rest of their day, while at the same time, somewhere in space several heroes were gathered around an oval table, and discussing the newest possible hero to join the news team. A bat-themed hero towered over them, as he addressed his fellow heroes, and a holographic picture of Batgirl appeared at the center. "This is Batgirl, a protege of mine, and I am appointing her to join the team." Like Robin, she excels in stealth, martial arts, hacking, and computer tech. Batman started the meeting while many members studied her. He could see that his protege got a lot of attention, mostly from Diana, who looked at her with pride. And it was she who spoke next. I have heard many good things about her, and her deeds. She will be a good addition to the team, but why now? You told us you needed someone in Gotham in case you are not there to protect your city. She questioned the Dark Knight, who sighs before elaborating his reason why he wanted to place her on the team. Batgirl was exposed to a fearsome toxin of Scarecrows in a confrontation that we expect is a team play between villains. Batman started, locking eyes with each member, who all looked quite shocked at that statement. Scarecrow had created a terrifying toxin that would have made her mentally unstable or worse, dead. What? How is she? Several members shouted out in worry at the state of one of their fellow heroes' sidekicks. One of them, the most vocal, is Green Arrow, who had a good relationship with several younger heroes. Batman raised his hand to calm them down, as slowly the voices of his allies died out, and calm returned to the group. Batgirl is fine. She was rescued by a new hero in town. A new holographic picture appeared next to that of Batgirl. This picture is of Susanoo. A hero that goes by the name of Susanoo, and like you can see, he looks a bit like us, and I mean with it, me, and Batgirl. Susanoo whispered to Arrow when he caught sight of the hero. His eyes slightly widened, but a small smile at seeing someone familiar, and the possibility of working with him again. So that's where you ran off to, old Three Eyes. Do you know him? Batman jumped at Arrow's musing, hoping get some more intel about this mysterious hero. All the other attention turned towards Arrow, and all were eager to hear more about him. I only know him under his alias, as Susanoo, and I know that at least a few of us have met him at least one time. Susanoo here helped me with the League of Shadows problem by spying on me, and keeping my team in Starling City safe. Arrow said with a fond smile. The League of Shadows business was before I joined the League, and had helped to keep criminals at bay. Even now he is helping me with training my new protege, Artemis, with hand-to-hand combat. How did he help you with your shadow problem? Batman fished for more intel. Arrow laughed loudly when he imagined Ra's al Ghul's humiliated face, when he found all his men being cured by Susanoo's cures against the terrifying plague that had wiped out a Chinese city. His laughter was halted when Black Canary planted her elbow in his ribs, and he gathered himself together before he answered. He saved Starling City by making a cure against the infected members of the Shadows. He is terrifyingly good at recreating any toxin, poison or whatever, but what is more astounding is his quick way of identifying and creating an antidote for any toxin or poison. The other heroes listened in astonishment at what he accomplished, except Black Canary and Batman, as they had seen the proof of Arrow's claim. Batman spoke once again when Arrow was done. Arrow is right, Susanoo saved Batgirl by making an antidote against Scarecrow's fear toxin. After that I met Susanoo, and we raided his base, and we found some disturbing news, but that is for later. Let us continue about our next candidate, Artemis, and she is, like Arrow said, his new protege. I think I can say that Susanoo and Batgirl both have exceptional skills, and about Artemis, can we conclude that she has mastered the use of the bow? Superman said, bringing all the attention towards him. Arrow nodded, and from there on the League discussed if the following young heroes would join the new team that Batman had started, a team they called Young Justice. Gotham, Arkham Asylum. Please let me, Crane cry out in misery. The Scarecrow lay curled up in his cell, hands on both his sides, as he tried to block out the sounds of screams. Images of past victims tore him apart, drilling holes with the spikes, as that moon cast her crimson light on them. Curse him. Curse you, Crane. A menacing voice came from the shadows. Crane looked up, and he tried to crawl away when he saw the bloody crimson eyes that brought him to this nightmare. An evil sound thundered through the space that made Crane's blood cold, and the pair of eyes became 3, and a shadow grew with 10 shadows sweeping behind the figure. The creature chuckled before the fear became too much, and his heart clashed against his ribs, as the last words that he heard were, I told you about Scarecrow. You will never leave my world. Thanks for watching my video, see you next time, till then sayonara.